Welcome to Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper. You can find me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on X at Cliffy D. And this episode of the Alouettes Flightdeck is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code ALSFlightdeck10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your entire order. So head over to www.sportbuffshop.com. Check out the amazing merchandise they have. Use the promo code. And as always, folks, support local.
Have you missed any of the episodes of the Flight Deck at all? Well, you can head over to our full archive over at www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. You can follow us on X/Twitter at AlouettesFLDeck. Facebook, you can find us over at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod. Instagram and Threads, you can find us over at Alouettes Flight Deck. And then YouTube, where you can find all of our audio podcasts. You can also find our Flight Deck lives. They're all archived there. All you gotta do is just head over to alouettesflightdeck.ca and make sure when you're there, make sure you hit subscribe. And if you want to make sure that if you're notified for when we go live, make sure you hit the bell button and you'll be notified when we do all of our live broadcasting. Also, if you want to rep the podcast, you can do so by heading over to our merch store at teespring.com/stores/AlsFlightDeck, where you have just a very, very few bits of time in order to pick up that Cartoon Bird 56 t-shirt for our fan meetup on Thanksgiving Monday. But you can head over there and pick up any of our merchandise. Including right now we're running a promo code of TGiving23 where you will get 10% off your entire order. So buy merch, rep it, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you at the fan meetup on Thanksgiving Monday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before we started taping here tonight, I was watching Welcome to Wrexham. And it kind of made me think of how this last game was kind of like a movie of the week type of thing, where, you know, it didn't get its Hollywood ending. You know, it stalled in the middle, but then all of a sudden it picked up in the second half. Everything was going right for our heroes. We got the stops. We got everything that we needed. And then we didn't get that Hollywood ending. It wasn't a cliffhanger either. It wasn't a to be continued. You know, obviously, like some documentaries do, they ended on a low note. And that's, you know, to me, that's very similar to what this game was this past week versus the Toronto Argonauts.
I suppose it could have been worse. It could have been like the ending of the series finale of The Sopranos, where everything just goes to black, and you're like left wondering, what the hell? What was that? You know, well, I guess it could have been like that, and maybe in some senses, maybe it would have been better off, because the way the game ended this past Friday at Percival Molson Stadium, I mean, not a happy ending for sure, not a sad ending. I mean, unless you really truly wanted Montreal to win, which we did, but so I guess it was an ending. I mean, there's just nothing else to say. I mean, it was a very interesting game in the sense that both these teams played their asses off. They really did. Both came to play. Both looked outstanding. More in the second half, because the first half, as what seems to be lately with the Montreal Alouettes, it was a dog's breakfast. It was just a whole lot of nothing. Mm-hmm. But then these two teams got their act together. They made changes. They made the adjustments in the second half. And it ended up being, for the most part, a very entertaining football game. But yeah, the ending just, if you're an Alouettes fan, the ending just didn't quite live up to the destination, the journey, if you will. I mean, it didn't live up to what we ultimately wanted in the end.
No, unfortunately it did not. I mean, the Alouettes lose, and they did. They lost a heartbreaker to the Toronto Argonauts. They get swept in the 3-game season series, regular season series, or season series 23-20. Owls lose the a 3-game season series for the first time to Toronto since 1986. It gives the Argos the Eastern Division title. So everything, leading up to the Grey Cup will go through Toronto. It's just that, we've seen where the Owls have had almost a full 60 minutes. We've seen them play like garbage and then come back. I mean, it's unfortunately, like I said during a Flight Deck Live, the Owls have been so damn streaky this year. They just cannot put together a full 60 minutes. Really, the only one game was versus Saskatchewan, where that really was a full 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, whether it is the wins, losses, whether it's the the unable to, being able to score offensive touchdowns, just the ineptitude of that through multiple points this season. And I agree with you though. This was a great game. It was very very on point to what the last game versus Toronto and Montreal was like. Mm-hmm. That's Alouettes football that we like. But man, dude, can they put together 60 minutes of football again? Just certain things. If they had put together, even though they seemed to dominate the time of possession in the first half, they really didn't get it going until the second. But again, certain things just did not go right. I mean, again, we saw how the game ended. Game ended on a blocked field goal. One little mistake cost the Owls a potential tie and head into overtime. But it is what it is. The Owls are on a 4-game losing streak. 4-7. They're now tied. It's weird to say they're technically tied in points for second place with Hamilton, but they do lead they did win the season series versus Hamilton. I don't know what else this team can do. I mean, they have gone through every single thing that they could have this year, from injuries, a multitude of injuries, to quarterbacks being hurt, wide receivers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 6-7 is where they're at, unfortunately.
And once again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You are what your record says you are. And right now this is, it's a mid team, and now just slightly under mid, because now you're 6-7. So you're under 500. Doesn't mean you're bad, but it definitely doesn't mean you're good. I mean, the more I think about it, Tim, the hallmark, the calling card, if you will, of this Montreal Alouettes team for the past decade, and I'm going back to 2013, when that championship era for the Montreal Alouettes essentially was finished, when Mark Trestman bolted for the NFL. And from that moment to where we are today in 2023, roughly 10 plus years. I mean, 10 years and a bit, however you want to phrase it. The one thing that this team has always been is consistently inconsistent. No matter what, no matter who's behind center, no matter who the general manager is, no matter who owns the team. And this team has gone through so much upheaval. And the one thing that seems to be constant above all else, besides our unwavering dedication to this team through thick and thin, is that they are consistently inconsistent. And I wish I knew why. I wish I knew why it feels like every time this team takes 2 steps forward, they either get knocked back a step or they knock themselves back 2 steps. And you're back to where you started from.
Well, in this case, it was 4 steps forward, 4 steps back.
Hard to argue that. It's baffling. It's just one of these. I could live to be 100, and I will still not. When I look back at this time with the Montreal Alouettes history, I will say, "What the f? Like what is it? Like what?" It's not like there's just one thing you can point to and say this is what's caused the Alouettes to be where they are, and for this to be essentially their identity. There's a multitude of things that have led to the Alouettes to where they are right now. And even when you think things are finally starting to turn a corner, even when you think that this team has got it put together, has got it figured out, then you get games like this. And the week before, where they just got absolutely manhandled by this same Toronto team. It's baffling. There's just no other word to put it other than it's baffling.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty damn good analogy. That really is a very. I mean, it's you know, for most supporters, you'll look at the records and you'll just look at the records themselves and say this is how we ended up in the year. We went to the playoffs and da 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 da. But you're right. You know, with all the trials and tribulations that the Owls have gone through since 2011. You know, the loss of Hall of Famer AC, head coaches galore, starting quarterbacks galore. It's true. It really is. I mean, it's just 2019 was kind of a change in that, but again, the VA era is over. The VA era is over here. It's been over, since he was traded last season. And by the way, I'm you pointed this out in pregame, and I have to at least mention it now. Speaking of real quickly, since we're talking about the past, shout out to former Alouettes quarterback Vernon Adams. Not once, but twice in his career has he led a team to almost a team record for comebacks. He did it for the Miracle on Mount Royal, where for that 24-point comeback versus Winnipeg in 2019, and he did it this past week for a 19-point comeback versus Ottawa in the fourth quarter too. So I don't think many quarterbacks can actually say that they've done what he's done. And yes, I'm still I'm okay with Cody Fajardo being our starting quarterback, but when you got the system, when you have the right guys in place, when you are there where they they've set the team up for you specifically, it just goes to show what any player can do, and that's what VA has done in BC. So, again, props to him. But yeah, inconsistently consistent.
Yeah, no, definitely big time props to BA. He did the thing, and so proud of him. I mean, he will always be our quarterback. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. This is not meant to be disparaging to Cody Fajardo or anybody else who lines up under center of the Alouettes, but for what we've seen from day one of Vernon Adams, like anyone who truly knows the man is not surprised to see what he pulled off this past Saturday against Ottawa. I mean, it was just absolutely sensational, and honestly could not happen to a better person. Like, It just would have been nice if he could still be here doing that, but the circumstances didn't allow it. It is what it is. He's out in BC doing his thing and doing amazing. And, like I remember even saying to him, like, I wouldn't be mad seeing like a BC Lions Montreal Alouettes Grey Cup. And honestly, not being upset regardless of who wins, because it would truly be for us the best of both worlds. We'd be thrilled for VA to finally get that Grey Cup championship and to prove that he is who we have said he's been for years, or the Alouettes win a Grey Cup, and that's awesome for us too. So
yeah,
but it mathematically it could still happen. But I mean, we take a look at this game against Toronto and where things are at right now, and what's coming up on the horizon for the Alouettes. It's not a difficult road that they're on, but it's not easy either. I mean, let's call it what it is. They've got their work cut out for them.
They do. Just the first half alone seemed so shades of the comeback game in Ottawa. The first half was just a total garbage. People remember what it was in Ottawa before the comeback, but the same thing here. It was just garbage in the first half, and it took them going into the locker room down after only scoring 3 points to actually show up.
And Fajardo did not look good at all in that first half. I mean,
no, at all.
It was just, I mean, wasn't getting a whole lot of help from his offensive line either, but some of his decision-making skills and some of the checkdowns and the hitch routes that he was throwing were just like, why? Like, do you not know where the end zone is? I guarantee it's not on the sidelines, because that's where you're throwing there. And then you're left wondering why you can only get like 3-4 yards at a clip. Like it. Yeah. I hate to say it, like, and it's so funny because, once Cody figured out where the end zone was, and started throwing towards it, they started scoring. They started putting points on the board, and that was great. And you just wonder, like, why couldn't you have done that in the first half too? It'd be a completely different game.
Yeah. No, The second half started off the way that fans wanted it to. I mean, this is crazy, and I was only able to confirm this with CFL stats guru Steve Daniel, just specifically on Fajardo. But you know, Cody for the second time this year, Cliff had a completion streak, 10 plus consecutive completion streak for the second time this year, and it showed in it right at the very beginning because that's where the Alouettes started off well. I think earlier in the year, I think it was 13, if I'm not mistaken. I wasn't able to find out which game it was, but still, Cody came to play. Everybody came to play in that second half. Remember, we were down William Stanback. That's a whole other thing we got to talk about, by the way, is the running game was just completely non-existent. But the Owls did what they needed to do in that second half. They got the lead, they got the blocking. I couldn't find that block, by the way. I know we talked about it on Flight Deck Live. But that block by Walter Fletcher that allowed Cody to throw a particular pass to maybe it was Tyson Philpott or something like that. I couldn't find the actual play, but I know you remember me commenting about it at the game itself.
Yeah.
They did everything that was necessary. Everything that was necessary in order to get this team back into it, and they did. They did. Yeah. Just one little blip there in the fourth quarter that really cost the Alouettes the game.
Yeah, and let's not overstate the awesomeness of Cody Fajardo being able to find and develop that connection with Tyson Philpott. I mean, outstanding. I mean, this is what we were expecting, and even though Tyson Philpott spent the first part of the year more or less on the injured list, and it felt like it took a good while for him to really develop that chemistry with Fajardo. It was almost as if Fajardo's like, okay, I got Austin Mack, I got Tyler Sneed. I can hand it off to William Stanback or Walter Fletcher. Like it was just like he seemed hesitant to go looking towards Philpott's direction, and you even see like Tyson was just like, "I'm ready. You just got to find me. I'm going to get open. I'm ready to go." And finally, it was almost like Fajardo was finally like, "Okay, yeah, let's see what this kid can do." And sure enough, a lot of great connections and even scoring a touchdown. I mean that was. It did my heart good to see that because Tyson Philpott is a superstar. Now that he's back, he's healthy, ready to contribute. Like this is a guy you can lean on because let's face it, everybody knows who Austin Mack is now. I mean, he's not leading the league in reception yards by accident. It didn't happen all of a sudden. We know the connection with Tyler Sneed and the confidence he seems to have. Fajardo does in Cahoon 3.0. Now you just got to find something with Tyson Philpott. And I think he finally realized, it finally clicked in that, oh, yeah, I got a stud receiver at my side. Let me throw the ball to him. I bet good things will happen. And sure enough, they did. So once again, with that and the return of Keon Julian Grant to the lineup, I think Fajardo's finally starting to realize, like, I just got to get the ball out and start connecting with these guys because I've got a lot of talent at my arsenal. Like you don't have to keep running into your offensive line. You don't have to have the happy feet and trying to do too much. And I think that's a lot of what Fajardo's problem is he's trying so hard to be the hero. He's trying to get that home run shot, and it's ending up biting him in the ass. And you just got to have faith in your receivers because they've got faith in you. That you throw them the ball, they are going to make good things happen. But you got to throw them the ball. Like there are too many times where Fajardo is just trying to do too much by himself. And yeah, if he can scamper first down, that's fantastic. But throw the damn ball. I mean, it's like when you do, you tend to connect with your receivers. I mean, wasn't his completion rating like something like in the 80s this past game, despite the final result?
77% with an efficiency of 93.3. And the reason why I think what brought it down was the interception.
Right.
But still, I mean, 30 of 39, dude, for 274 yards. 1 and 1. So it's
these are not terrible numbers. I mean, like this is what you would expect out of your starting quarterback is some sort of consistency when it comes to throwing the ball. So he's got to start believing in himself to be able to do that. He's got to start trusting his receivers to be able to go and make that catch, not just like the amazing catches Austin Mack can make. Spread the ball around, make things happen, and for God's sakes, I mean, don't abandon the run either. Like I think that really was one of the things with the Alouettes was just once again, we're seeing it again. And I was actually reminded by a previous episode of the Flight Deck, one of our times talking with head coach Jason Moss, and I even complimented him on being able to put the running backs into play, to be able to use that more, because that was the narrative with him. One of the many narratives with him last year in Saskatchewan was he abandoned the run far too often.
Yeah.
And I think he finally, it was looking initially earlier this year that he had got it figured out. He knew how to incorporate the run game. The past couple of games, though, he's gotten the hell away from it. And
it's not like we weren't down that much this game. It's not like the previous game we were just getting, shellacked, which I can understand. But
right.
let's look at the positive. You're talking about our wide receiver core. It's funny. We're talking about Lil Big 1K Mac. He wasn't the leading receiver. Far from it this week. Tyson Philpott led the team with 9 receptions for 105 yards and that one tutty. Next went to Tyler Snead, 3 receptions, 63 yards. Austin Mack, 6 for 45. Cole Speaker, 4 for 37. KJG, he got his targets, but it's funny, 3 catches for 4 yards. What? But mind you, a lot of them were right at the line of scrimmage, where for some reason it's like the ball shouldn't have been thrown anyways. But I digress. David Delaire got his first. It was his first CFL catch, if I'm not mistaken, right? 17 yards.
That's right.
Yeah. Again, it's 10. Was it 10? 8 different receivers had at least one target, and I think last week it was 10, if I remember correctly. But
so he knows how to spread the ball around. It's got to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know. Once again, we talked about this earlier. This is not a theme for the Alouettes, is being consistent, but you got to find a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and unfortunately, we're talking about it before, is that even though the Owls only lost by 3, the leading rusher was Walter Fletcher. Obviously, he was playing for the dinged up.
William Stanback.
Yeah, dinged up William Stanback. He had only 29 yards on 6 carries. And then from there it was Antwi with 17, Cody had 19, and Caleb Evans at 6. So just take away the 2 quarterbacks, and you had 46 yards on 10 carries. It doesn't make any sense.
It's not enough, especially too going up against the Argos and AJ Ouellette, who just bowls people over like he has been all season, and even as early as last year, this guy was doing that, and did it once again against the Alouettes.
Right, but what the Owls defense was able to do to Ouellette this past week, I mentioned it before. If we were to give out game balls, dude, despite Cody's streak and whatnot that he had at the beginning of the second half, the game ball goes to the defense, without a doubt.
Yeah, they were literally next level. They were definitely outstanding, and you saw Darnell Stanky make his Alouettes debut and did not look out of place at all. But this
just wearing number 1, that's where he's the same thing with Sean Lemon with him wearing number 0. That just looks out of place for these defensive backs. So
it's a little bizarre, not gonna lie, but it is what it is. But no, this defense, I mean, top to bottom, looked extremely solid and made plays happen. The crowd got behind them as well. And that was the other thing too. Is
crowd was so good.
They got amped. They got excited. Because you gave them reasons to be excited. I mean, just that defensive stand with less than 2 or just under 2 minutes to go.
Mm-hmm.
My God! And being able to shut down Chad Kelly is no small feat.
Yeah, that in itself again was the turning point, though. Props to the crowd. Again, the crowd was in it. The crowd needed to be where it was, but that was the turning point within the game itself. Besides the blocked field goal, And why was it? Why do you say that, Tim? Well, let's put it this way. So, I mean, at 2 minutes and 25 seconds left, so we're already past the 3-minute warning cliff. Toronto actually had scored a touchdown to tie the game up, but it was negated because of a penalty during the play. So it negated it. Send a 3rd and long. We stop them. So it was a turnover on downs. Owls get the ball back, right, Cliff? But what do the Owls do to respond in order to take what they needed to do and to take time off the clock? They go 2 and out. They go 2 and out and take a grand total of 21 seconds off the clock. What happens on the next drive? Mind you, it was a glorious throw, and it needed to be. You need to have it to be perfect in order for it to be completed. It was. Toronto goes on that 2-play drive, glorious touchdown by Chad Kelly, and it ties up the game with the Alouettes. Again, 21 seconds after they have
you
stopped
couldn't have thrown
them
a better
on
ball than that. And Demetrius.
Yeah. So that one play, 21 seconds you take off the clock. You now we're talking about it. You got to take more time off the clock than just 21 seconds.
Yeah.
So, but
you do. And how do you do that? Run the ball. An incomplete pass is not going to cut it because that just stops the clock. Or even if you do complete the pass and only get 7 yards, that's not going to cut it either. It was just a wasted series, absolutely wasted series. Yeah. And the frustrating part was, just watching. Man, it makes my blood boil. It really does. It shouldn't, but and then watching the Alouettes just try to do something to kill time, and then Cody Fajardo gets hit with a hellacious hit from, I think it was Darius Pickett, if I'm not mistaken, former Alouette Darius Pickett, and instead of, obviously Cody was just trying to force this ball, and there was nobody else. There was no Alouettes around, but there was an Argo who was more than happy to take that interception. And what a time to throw your only interception of the game.
And it was right after Toronto had scored too, by the way.
Yeah.
Which led to the go-ahead field goal.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was just painful. I mean, all the Alouettes had to do was kill clock, get downfield enough to kick the hopefully game-winning field goal, and they couldn't do it. It was just pain, just pure pain.
Yeah, that was just one. That was with 1:03 left in the fourth. That's when the ball was intercepted.
Yeah,
I
don't know what's worse: getting blown out or losing in like soul-crushing fashion like that.
With all honesty, in all the many games that I've seen over the years, Cliff, I would probably go with a heartbreaking loss because I hate blowouts because then they get really, really boring.
True enough, but especially a blowout's tough to watch though because especially when you have a team that is so much better than what they're showing. Yeah, that's pretty frustrating. But to lose like that, to lose in heartbreaking fashion, the way the Alouettes did, knowing what was on the line too. I mean, do you realize what this victory could have meant for this team? What it could have meant for essentially the entire Eastern Division? I mean, I think that's what's got to be frustrating Alouettes fans more than anything else is what could have been more than anything else. And now with the knowledge that this is Toronto's division, and I'll go as far as to say it. The only way the Argonauts do not go to the Grey Cup again is if Chad Kelly somehow gets injured, because he really is the heart and soul of that team. He really is the straw that stirs the drink when it comes to the Argos. I mean, they go as far as he's willing to take them. And truthfully, the way he's been playing this year, he really will take them to the promised land. I truly believe that. And now we're going to have to see if you want to go to the Grey Cup in the Eastern Division, you're going to have to get through these Argos. And again, I hate to be negative. I hate to be pessimistic, but that's going to be a lot easier said than done. Yeah.
And, we had, again, for that final drive itself for the Alouettes, I don't think anybody saw it coming. It was that 33-yard pass to Tyson Philippot that really, the Gals only got the ball back with 21 seconds left in the fourth. And they had a chance. It was a 45-yard field goal. It was blocked, and I was like,
And credit to I will give major full marks to the offense for not giving up. Yeah, you're right. Like most people, 20 seconds left, it's over. It's over. But imagine if that field goal wasn't blocked. My God.
Yeah,
but
we've had our fair share. Remember March Madness? Don't forget about March Madness.
That is true.
That was a last second drive. That led to a field goal. So again, yes, Owls do lose this game, drop to 6-7. Not everything was perfect. Once again, even the penalties. I mean, it was an improvement clip from the week prior. When it came to penalties, but I mean,
nobody got ejected. That's good.
Yeah, that was good too. Yep. The Owls only had 7 penalties. Argos had 11, but the plus is actually this is funny. The plus is that none of their penalties were on special teams.
No, and Chandler Worthy came very, very close to breaking one off.
Oh, did he? I know.
You really, truly get the impression that it really is just a matter of time before he has another house call this year. It is so close. We actually saw him post game and tell him like, dude, we were there for you. We wanted it so badly for you. And you can tell that he said, it's coming. It's coming. Like you could tell he knows it's good. It's just a matter of time. It just wasn't meant to be last week, but it's coming. He will take one more to the house for sure this year. Of that,
yeah, and that's all I got to. That's all I got to do this week. I just noticed it now that there was not a single punt by the Argos all night. In that type of game where it's 23-20, such a garbage first half, and then you have such a great second half. Everything was on Chandler on kickoffs. That was a 50-yard return that he had. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to believe Toronto with no punts. That's crazy.
Yep. It was just that kind of weird, wacky game in a lot of ways, but yeah.
Yeah. So, again, everything when it came to, again, too, they were talking about it before, not only with the block kick, but we also had the missed field goal by David Cote, and that kind of set Toronto up for something too, because even it was just wide. I think it would have tied the Owls. Is that what I'm trying to double check here? What it would have done, but I mean it's, and that was late in the fourth also, if I'm not mistaken. So,
well, and what helped was that Toronto ended up with a penalty that pushed them back considerably.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was a legal block in the back that put the Argos on their own 2 or 3 yard line, if I'm not mistaken. But they were able to get out of the shadows of their own goalpost with an absolutely incredible pass. I think it was to Demetrius Coxey again.
That Cote drive, that Cote miss was right before that drive that the Alouettes stopped them on 4th down. Mm-hmm. So it's funny how these things just followed each other one after another this past week.
Which ultimately does make for a very fun game to watch. There's no question about that. I mean, like the entertainment aspect of it was there. Both teams definitely brought that.
Mm-hmm.
It really just, again, if you're an Argos fan, you're thrilled at how it ended. I mean, it was crazy as it was. You're happy at how it ended. But for Alouettes fans, I mean, it was just so close yet once again that it can just get snatched away from you, like snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah, that's why it makes
it makes for a very bitter pill to swallow once again. I mean, getting blown out was bad enough the week before.
Yeah.
And it felt like you couldn't help but wonder, okay, 2 games at Percival Molson Stadium, and both are very tightly contested affairs that the Argos were able to squeak out of there with a victory. And then you go to BMO Field and the Alouettes get their lunch eaten for them, which, again, comes back to the same thing.
The Owls pooped the bed in Toronto.
Big time. And where's the Eastern Final going to be played this year? BMO Field. Mm-hmm. If the Alouettes make it there, I mean, history is not on their side. It never has been, especially when it comes to BMO Field. One victory out of so many. I mean, and even though last year it ended up being a much more tightly contested affair, still was a loss though. And as I said, I look at how this Argos team is built. I look at the weapons they have, and realistically, the only way you're going to get past them is if Chad Kelly gets hurt. I,
Yep.
I'm willing to die on that hill. That truly is, that speaks volumes. I mean, like just I remember the start of the year, people didn't know what to make of this kid, and he's doing it, man. He has proven that he belongs in this league, and proven that he deserves to be considered among one of the top quarterbacks in this league, and to be paid as such, which he will be. It really is remarkable. Like, this guy is in the MOP discussion without question. And I mean, really, truly, like, I think that's the only thing that's going to stop the Argos this year is if somehow Chad Kelly gets injured.
Yeah. A little bit of Alouettes news before we talk about the lead up to this very important game at Calgary on Saturday. As I had mentioned on social last week before it was announced officially by the team, that the season ticket member day is going to be happening, Cliff, on the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So, so that's going to be on October 7th. It's not going to be occurring at the Percival Molson Stadium this year. It is going to be held at the annex field, or the practice field at the Olympic Stadium, and it's situated in between the Big O and Stade Saputo. So if you've been to the stadium, but if you've been to practice before, then you know exactly where it is. Make sure the official time, by the way, even though it says something different on the actual ticket itself, official time is from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. that day. Mm-hmm. So you need to go into your online ticket manager and make sure that you do reserve your spot, quote unquote. I don't know how it could be trolled anyways, but considering we know how open it is, but go in there and still you can quote unquote reserve your tickets, and they'll be put into your online ticket manager. So make sure you do that too, Cliff. Also, if you remember seeing it, there'll be a Q&A session with President and CEO Mark Waitman and General Manager Danny Machocha. They're going to be serving unlimited hot dogs and beverages, Cliff. Unlimited hot dogs and beverages, Cliff.
Unlimited hot dogs, you say?
Yes. Get to watch them practice. If you haven't picked up your cap yet for your season ticket gift, you can do that there also. You'll be able to enjoy 25% off discount for the Alouettes Boutique. So they're going to be Corey's going to have something set up there. But it should be fun, and we're hoping to do some stuff, whether it be taped or whether we do some stuff live, live on location. Stay tuned for our socials, and we'll let you guys know what we're going to do. So won't be the normal Flight Deck Live, but it could easily be Flight Deck Live. So
we could make an event out of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then obviously leading up to what we talked about earlier is the fan meetup on Thanksgiving Day. So again, stay tuned for any more information with that. Mm-hmm. Not much more information at all from the Owls this week.
No major moves, no releases, no signings, no.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, am I surprised? No, but I mean, we're at that time of the year though now, Cliff, where it's, you know what I mean? We're not really expecting much to occur unless something,
Yeah, I mean, the trade deadline's probably next month. Will the Alouettes make a move? I seriously don't know. I can't see them making any moves. I mean, at this point, I have to believe that they're set with who they've got. And realistically, is anybody, like, with the parity that's going on right now, I mean, is anybody really truly in a position to trade anything other than draft picks? I mean,
yeah, I know. Oh, wow. Ottawa kicker Lewis Ward's on the injury list. Looks like to be the 6th game.
Actually, he's out for the season. He tore a pec.
Oh, I was wondering when he was holding his thing. I wondered when I saw that.
And I feel bad. I kind of made a joke about because he's so young and so young looking. I actually made a joke that the reason why they brought in other kickers to try out was because they were grounding him for missing that
So
game tying field goal.
That's so bad,
Cliff. Then I got corrected online about no, he's actually out for the season. He tore his pec.
Yeah, but dude, for him to continue playing the game with a torn pec, come on.
Whew.
Dude, that's going.
You don't need your pec to kick footballs, I guess. But
no, but I'll give the dude props anyways. Because it's the same thing with what Cody did. Remember, Cody had an issue too for that. He continued playing the game versus Hamilton, and he had hurt his non-throwing shoulder. Mm-hmm. So these guys ball. These guys ball really, really well, hard. So I mean, it's so.
No, they're
yeah.
You cannot. You can question a lot of things with these guys, but their toughness is not something that can be questioned. And I don't know if it's that Canadian blue collar mentality that a lot of these guys have. Maybe that's really what it is. But yeah, I mean, these are some tough hombres out there. So I'll give credit where credit's due, 100%. Yeah, so for Lewis Ward to finish the game with a torn pec is pretty outstanding. I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate that his coach put him in a terrible position with that field goal. In my opinion, just kind of like with David Cote missing the 54-yarder. Should they have even been in that position? Should either of those kickers really have been in that position? At that point, wouldn't a punt have been better? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really, if only to pin your opposition deep and make them work for whatever points. I mean, listen, it's hindsight, and yes, it's easy for us to make these suggestions and such, sitting on our couch and, ultimately sitting in front of our computers. But still, when you look at both instances, like those were, well, especially in the Ottawa BC game, that was a true game breaker. Like that was what completely shifted momentum 100% to the BC Lions.
Of course. By the way, we now have a kicker in the league that almost has a very similar name to the quarterback in Saskatchewan.
Michael Domagala or Domagala?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they signed 2 of them. So they signed 2 kickers. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Anyways. So leading into the game this week versus the Calgary Stampeders, very surprisingly, Cliff, the Alouettes are actually favored on the road by 1.5 points. Calgary is not an easy place for the Alouettes to play.
Never has been.
Yeah. Just look at the last couple of times that they played them. From the almost comeback with Gino, the overtime games and stuff like that. But you said something very interesting to me pre-show when it came to the Calgary Stampeders, is that do the Calgary Stampeders know who the Calgary Stampeders are? Because, again, they're not favored at home versus the Alouettes. I mean,
I guess, and they're coming off a bye too. So I mean, one would have to think that they're definitely rested and have probably had a better chance to prepare for Montreal. And again, this is a team that typically they've always done better than when it comes to playing in Calgary. So, but at the same time, this Calgary franchise is very much, in a lot of ways, like Montreal in that they have flashes of brilliance. They have times where their team looks absolutely outstanding, and then they just find new and exciting ways to lose football games.
Yeah,
and it's got to be baffling for Stampeder fans as well, because after decades, practically, of top-notch quality football, this year has just been an abomination for the Stampeders.
No, it's true. Just looking now, Owls have lost the last 9 of 10 at Calgary, but the last 3 have just been amazing games. I mean, the Owls win in overtime, 40-34. They lost in regulation 28-22, and then they lost. I think it was the last second non-catch by Gino, I think, and they lost 30-27.
Yep.
So, it's a plus to start off that the Alouettes are favored by 1.5 points. Over-under is currently set at 47, by the way. So, and that's according to DraftKings.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down with Calgary is just, as I said, they've got talent. They've got talented people, but they just can't seem to put it together when they have to. I mean, we're still wondering, is Jake Mayer the guy in Calgary? I mean, is he going to be the quarterback of the future, or is he a stopgap solution until something better comes along? We truly don't know. And
no,
it's funny. I think back to like when Calgary was here in Montreal, and typically Calgary has never done very well playing here. And a lot of people joke about the whole, Stampeders coming in and enjoying the nightlife kind of thing, and ends up not being great for the team. But I think about that game, and aside from a KB and Ento pick six, it was all the kickers. It was all Rene Paredes versus David Cote in that game. And one can't help but wonder if it'll be the same thing this time at McMahon Stadium. Will it be a kicking duel, and maybe a defensive pick six ends up being the deciding factor for the game, whether it's for Calgary or for Montreal? That's not so impossible to think. I mean, unless truly Cody Fajardo takes a look at the work that he's put in the past 4 games. And again, we got to address the elephant in the room. Ever since Cody Fajardo came back from his injury, the Alouettes have not won a single game.
That's true.
And yes, they have played the quote-unquote top-tier teams all 4 of those games, but you still have to find a way to win one. And you damn near won one of them, but it still comes back to he is on a 4-game losing skid. And is he going to be able to get this figured out against Calgary? That to me is going to be crucial more than anything else, because let's face it, there's 5 games left in this season. If the Alouettes can go 9-9 again, is that going to be good enough to keep second place in the East? I mean, all of a sudden, Hamilton seems to be figuring things out. They beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who the Alouettes couldn't beat.
Yeah.
The Ottawa Red Blacks beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers too. It's such a weird season, in like you just don't know what to expect. Like this past weekend was a real eye opener in a lot of ways. I mean, we thought Hamilton was dead and buried with with all their injuries, but lo and behold, Taylor Powell is figuring stuff out, and they're making plays happen. And maybe it's also too Scott Milanovic has taken over the play calling duties in Hamilton. Something's working for them all of a sudden. And now, yeah, they're essentially tied with the Alouettes. The Alouettes are very lucky to have the season series as a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
But
it's funny how the playoff spot could come down to the last home game for the Alouettes this year, because versus Hamilton.
It very well could. And this is why you're playing both Alberta teams. You're playing Ottawa twice, and you're playing Hamilton. Ideally, you should be winning all 5 of those games. That should be the goal, is to win all 5 of those games.
Owls need to go 4-1, in my opinion. They need to go 4-1 in order to keep this, in order to keep the playoff spot and be able to host an East semifinal.
And I know Ottawa's in complete disarray right now. I know they're just.
Are we lucky to get them back to back? We'll find out. We'll find out.
But Tim, we've never once swept the Red Blacks, aside from 2014, and that was still a home and home series, like one game there, one game back.
Yeah,
that was it. That was their initial year in the CFL.
They've been our nemesis. They've been our nemesis before when it came to the playoffs. We all remember what was it? 2021.
Hell, we can even go back to last year. They spoiled Thanksgiving for us.
Yeah,
the Alouettes could have clinched that playoff spot. They could have clinched that home playoff game, and they choked last. It was against Ottawa. Now, yes, they ended up going back to Ottawa a couple days later and barely winning that game. But let's not forget, Tim, the 2 games that the Red Blacks and Alouettes played this year were very tightly contested affairs. And I'll go even so far as maybe the Alouettes were lucky to win both of those games. So just because right now things are not looking great in Ottawa doesn't mean that these 2 games coming up are gimmies for the Alouettes.
Nope. Again, I've referenced it many, many a time. Ottawa, Renegades, Montreal Alouettes, Canada Day. That's all I gotta say.
That was 2005, and it's still haunting us in 2023. But
No, you can't say it's a gimme. All these coaches said the right thing. You have to go 1-0 each week.
It's so true. And Edmonton all of a sudden has really caught fire as well. That wasn't the gimme that it was back in June, July.
Yeah, I know we're looking forward to seeing the guys for the turf districts and everything, but yeah, it's things are getting real.
That's just it. I mean, like I said, you got 5 games. I mean, God forbid you go 9-9 again, which means you've won 3 and lost 2 of those 5 games. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be enough to keep that home playoff game that they currently have? I truly don't know.
I agree with you.
I mean, my God. I mean, you have to, like you said it. I think 4-1 you have to go 4-1 at the very least.
Yeah,
because because 3-2 will end up making you 9-9, but I just don't think 9-9 is going to cut it as far as hosting a playoff game. I mean, you might just barely, by the balls of your ass, get into the playoffs, but that means you're going on the road to whomever ends up in second place.
Yeah, exactly. Just a quick update.
It's just not so cut and dry.
No, it's not. Just a quick update when it comes to the practice reports and injury reports. William Stanback, as we know, who was out last week, has been a full participant this week, which is a plus. It's going to be very interesting to see how you know what, the way it's been so far this year, Cliff, having a 3-headed monster hasn't mean squat. Every game that we've had, all 3 of them together, the Owls, I think the Owls have lost. Christian Matt looks like he most likely will not play. He's currently has a knee injury, according to the injury report. Hasn't practiced at all this week with 1 day remaining. Avery Ellis, who was a healthy scratch, he's been full participant in practice. You know, one of the big things too that we were talking about before at the beginning of the show, Cliff, is curious to know what it's going to be like. You were talking about getting KGG back, who's very close to also returning to the field. Reggie White. So
these are good problems to have, is to have all this talent. I mean,
Fajardo needs to stay as hot as he was in the second half this past week.
And it just comes down to making better decisions. I mean, these hitch screens and checkdowns, I mean, that's got to stop. The happy feet have to stop. I mean, when he's on, he's absolutely outstanding. There's no question about that. No one's going to deny that. But a lot of the decision-making process, though, is so suspect. And that's the troubling part is, I mean, if you're going to make these kind of mistakes, maybe it's better to make them in the first half, get it out of your system, and then focus on the second half. But that means your defense is going to have to play outstanding football too. And
they can't do it. Yeah, I don't want them to do it again because again, if the Alouettes offense goes stagnant again this week and leave it up to the defense, with the travel out there, we don't want the defense to get gassed again. We were very lucky that the Alouettes were able to start doing something in the second half because, as I had mentioned at Flight Deck Live, that if it hadn't been for that, the defense would have been gassed. We were just lucky that the first half was just so atrocious for both teams.
It really was. And again, with Calgary being Calgary, I mean, they could either be firing out of the gate right off the bat or back to stinking out the joint. You really don't know which Calgary team you're going to get. We don't know which one's going to show up on Saturday. I mean, as you know, all Alouettes Nation can do is just hope that Montreal gets it figured out and just plays a complete game from start to finish and just get it figured out. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, if they can go to Calgary and get the win, which is not impossible, I mean, considering who this Calgary team is, it just starts there. And all of a sudden, you're 7-7 again. And you're back to being a 500 team. Still not a great goal to aspire for, but you're not in the negative. And it just starts from there. Like you said, take that mentality of 1-0 every week. Okay, you went 1-0 against Calgary. Then you got the next week against Ottawa. Go 1-0 there. Ottawa again. And so on. It starts from there. And if you could somehow find a way to win all 5 of these remaining games, that's awesome. That that will definitely solidify the home playoff game without question.
And it will be hot. They always say teams catch it. I think Cody has said it this week in a couple of the scrums that he's had. That's available on the Alouettes YouTube page. Teams get hot for other reasons. He's mentioned he's won a Grey Cup being a 500 team. So anything's possible, but they got to do it. They just got to. It's funny to say they're so far late in the season. They need to get it right for the next 7 games, not 5. 7. So
it's true. You do have to think like that, but it starts with 1. It starts with 1.
8. Sorry, 8.
Yes,
I left out Grey Cup.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
but once again, let's not put the cart before the horse.
No.
Let's focus on 1-0 this week. That's
right.
That's what Montreal has to do. They've got to focus on that. Simply put, and just put it together, get it figured out, come home from Calgary with a win, and it goes from there. And you just start building that momentum again. And you're back to being that team again. And call it consistently inconsistent if you want, but so what? Just win. That's all it really comes down to now is you got to win. You're out of gimmies. You're out of mulligans. You're out of, well, we'll get them next times. That's all done. That's finished. Finito. Like now these games truly, truly, truly count. You're not going to catch first. You're not getting first place. That's already dealt with. Accept it.
That's already in the history books. So,
but second place is very attainable. It is still something that you have it now. Now you got to keep it. You got to fight and work your ass off to keep it. It can be done, but you got your work cut out for you. Simple as that.
Yeah.
But it starts in Calgary, and God willing, it'll keep on going from there. But focus on that. And man, I just want to see this team come out and really prove themselves to everybody and put the league on notice once again.
Don't forget you can reach out to us on any of our socials. Also, if you want to email us, you can do so. You can email me at tim.capper@alouettesflightdeck.ca, or you can email Cliff over at cliffed.pine@alouettesflightdeck.ca. We are going to be live again for our Flight Deck Live post-game show. That will be occurring almost immediately after the game, so stay tuned for the link and for the notification of when we are going to go live, because we'll be talking about our first reactions to the Alouettes at Stampeders. But other than that, dude, it's you've hit the nail on the head. I don't think we can say it anymore. They need to right the ship. They need to get back on track because right now they are in that spot where they are. They still do have that playoff spot, but again, we still got 5 more to go. So that's they just got to concentrate.
And if this past weekend taught us nothing else, is that anything is possible, including the Alouettes letting this slip away. So right now they control their own destiny as far as second place goes.
Yep,
it's how bad you want it. Because if you don't want it, Hamilton, as I said, they're coming alive and they're getting hot at the right time.
Yep.
It could very well easily be Hamilton going and hosting that playoff game instead. Personally, I want to be at Percival Molson Stadium in November.
I do too.
I really do. So, but it starts with 1. It just starts with 1. So
yep.
I hope the team has that mentality. I hope they have that mindset. They go into Calgary and they just do what they know how to do. Simple as that.
Exactly. I agree with you. We appreciate everybody who's listened to the show week after week after week. We love doing this for you, and we love doing our newest project, the Flight Deck Live. We seem to be getting some great feedback on it, and we really appreciate you guys listening on all of our watching on all of our platforms. So, if we don't happen to see you on Flight Deck Live this week, we will talk to you next week with the next podcast. So until then, for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on final approach.